And of course, there's a ton going on at the state level, not just in terms of COVID-19, but in legislature also on a number of different issues. And joining us to talk about that from the 26th District, we're pleased to be joined by Representative Jim Ellison now on the MegaCast. Representative Ellison, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for inviting me, Tyler. It's good to be here.
Appreciate having you on. Let's start off with the repealing of the 75-year-old Emergency Powers Act that is set to be repealed by the Michigan House of Representatives. That, of course, was what was utilized early on in the pandemic by Governor Gretchen Whitmer in order to put in sweeping regulations across the state to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Your thoughts on the repealing of this emergency powers law?
Well, I think the timing, unfortunately, is extremely poor because, as we're all seeing, that the incidence of the virus coming is increasing, and what has happened now is that the legislature has taken away the ability of the governor to react quickly to any kind of emergency situation she needs to do. So we're going to be in a position where the health department could do something, but I know that there's plans trying to get rid of their ability to do something. But if we wind in a situation where there's an emergency that we need to react to quickly, all we can do is turn to the other side of the aisle and say, what are you going to do? This is now your responsibility. You have taken away the ability of the governor to respond quickly to these in an emergency situation. So what are you going to do? You're the ones that have taken on the responsibility. And I think that process is going to slow down any reaction time to anything we need to react to quickly.
And that applies to situations beyond just COVID-19, beyond just this governorship and her current administration. This goes on to future governors as well, Republican, Democrat, or other parties that may need to apply these now defunct situations into real-time issues.
They have repealed the 1945 law, which is the one the governor was operating under. There are other aspects out there, but they all require legislative approval before they can be instituted. So again, it's going to delay the process. We can't get an instantaneous response from the leadership of the state. We have to go back to the legislature. And in order to do that, the legislature needs to be convened. We need to call back up the line saying we have to have a meeting and we need to discuss it, and that all takes time. So I think it was a poor move. I think it was a gut reaction to people misinterpreting what the governor was doing. When I think all her goal was to protect the state, protect the people that live in her state that she was elected to run, and I think that's what she did. Did everybody agree with some of the things she did? Did I agree with everything she did? No, but I do agree that it was her right to do that for the reasons that she had, and she was able to defend all of them. So I think it was a mistake to preempt that ability for her to react.
Yeah, it's an emergency situation, and you don't wait 30 minutes to address your house being on fire. And in a situation like this, you don't want to be waiting for an amount of time to convene the House or convene the Senate and be able to make those decisions at a legislative level. But at the same time, you do want to continue to establish the separation of powers throughout our government. On another issue also being discussed to potentially repeal would be requirements for state taxes that require employees to pay income taxes in the cities in which they work. We see this often, for example, for people that work for companies that are located outside the city of Detroit but do pay city taxes in Detroit for the time that they spent working in the city of. What are the discussions at this time in regards to potentially repealing this requirement, and your thoughts on the matter?
Those discussions haven't come in my direction. I know they're going out there about is it fair to tax somebody who works in your city even if they don't live in your city? There could be arguments made both ways. I mean, I live in Royal Oak, but I work in Lansing, and I'm taxed with Lansing city taxes. And for many years, I worked in Detroit, and I got taxed Detroit city taxes. And that argument could be made that since I'm going into the community, I'm using those facilities, and somehow it's got to be paid for. But by the same token, I do the same thing in my city, and I'm not paying an income tax. So income tax is something that is debatable. It's a valuable tool for some communities, but not all communities.
We're joined by Jim Ellison, State Representative from Michigan's 26th District, with us today on the Oakland County MegaCast. And in your local area, in the city of Royal Oak, there's been a big debate lately about the War Memorial in downtown Royal Oak, potential for that to be moved. What are your thoughts on that situation?
Oh, I got to be careful here because there is litigation going on, and it's a number of years. When I was back in Mayor of Royal Oak, which was back in 2016. That's when we originally started the process of building this downtown community park. We were building a new city hall, we were building a new police station, and the decision by the commission was made to tear down those two old facilities and turn it into a community park. And the land they were on abutted the area where the Veterans Memorial was. And a number of years ago, we had dedicated an entire section of property as Veterans Memorial property. The dispute comes is some people interpreted that as where the memorial was specifically was a protected spot. There are those of us that went back and read the ordinance, and the entire area was protected, which allowed the memorial to be moved anywhere as long as it stayed within that dedicated piece of land, and that's a big dispute. So that started with that. The city laid out plans for the park. The plans included having to move the memorial 40 foot to the east to facilitate the flow of the park and the use of the park, and enhancing the area that was going to go in front of the library. And so they moved the memorial 40 foot to the east, and they kind of segregate it with a grove of trees, and really the artist's concept was to make it more accessible. We put it back on the ground so it's not two steps up. I mean, everything they did, they were doing it to make it a more pleasant, more accepting area. But unfortunately, we do have a group in the city that grabs at everything they can. It's a political group. They're running their own candidates for office, and they've turned it into a political football, and it's turned ugly. It's turned very, very ugly. And unfortunately, I think the ones that are going to take the biggest hit on this is going to be the veterans, because personally, I think they've been used as patsies for this group of political activists to try to get their way and misinterpret the facts. So, it's going to go on. The finally succeeded in getting this. Is going to be on the ballot in November. Should we move it? Well, it's already moved. So if the ballot initiative passes, then it's going to force the city to move it back to the tune of $400,000, and it's just turned into excuse the language, a pissing match between two groups of people, and it really doesn't happen, because all we really wanted to do was build a nice park in the center of the city for all our residents and visitors to enjoy, and it's turned into a very sour situation.
We're joined by Representative Jim Ellison from Michigan's 26th District on the Oakland County MegaCast, representing Royal Oak and surrounding areas in his district. And Jim, just another couple of minutes with you, Representative, before we'll say goodbye today. There's been a lot of chatter over the past couple of months, really, as employers continue to struggle to find employees, to find a mass of open jobs. And of course, there's been a lot of debate on the opposite side of the aisle from you, and particularly in the Republican Party here in the state of Michigan, about the potential for waiving the $300 credit for unemployment to try to encourage more people to get back into the workforce and go back in and accept some of these jobs. What are your thoughts on that situation? Because on one hand, the employees are making more money in some cases being on unemployment, and that is discouraging them from returning to the workforce. But on the other hand, what they're looking for in returning to the workforce is a simple need. We need to be able to pay our bills and be able to live a comfortable life without having to work 3-4 different jobs and still not be able to make ends meet.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted.
Yes.
We had people in crisis that had lost their jobs because the pandemic was shutting down businesses and they couldn't work. And so unemployment goes out there. We added the extra money. The money was made available. And yeah, it helped people to survive. It wasn't an invitation to stop working forever, because that money was eventually going to run out. And we also have the problem of wage. There was a petition initiative a number of years that got through, and was adopted by the leadership of the legislature to raise the minimum wage. And that would have helped a lot of these problems, that the people are making more money, more incentive to go back to work. But when it was adopted, it was gutted. It was gutted by the Republican majority, so that it didn't make any difference in anything. And it phased in over the years. Eventually, it may raise some money, but far behind the needs of people that need money. We need, minimum wage needs to be raised. These people need to get back to work. They need to have some incentive to get back to work. And this $300 bonus pay is going to run out. Complicated now by the fact that we're seeing instances of the virus that's coming back. So does that mean we need to reboot this whole situation or keep this in? It's a constantly changing situation. When the bill came in front of us, I did not support repealing that because I felt there were still too many people that needed that money to pay the rent, to pay the bills, whatever it was, and we were just cutting it out from under them. But now time has progressed, and the situation needs to be analyzed again. I mean, we do have a lot of people, we do have a lot of jobs available that people aren't taking, and it's come to the point that we need to take that incentive away and say, go back to work, because everybody's suffering now. But to tell them to go back to work, only to be told, okay, we've got to shut you down again because the pandemic's being kicked in. It's just, it's a constantly changing situation, and I don't think there is any real right answer right now.
Well, Representative Ellison, we appreciate your time, appreciate you joining us to talk about these issues. We'll definitely want to have you on again and appreciate your time today.
Anytime.